I am particularly pleased with the choice of this year's theme, which revolves around energy for the future, revitalizing the industry, future fuels and energy transition. The theme was carefully selected to reflect the current reality in the world energy mix today and the transition trend to cleaner and sustainable energy. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources has in the last few years pursued the transformation agenda of this present administration of delivering investment in capital projects, thereby enhancing job creation opportunities and, of course, poverty eradication. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources and its agencies give effect to government's aspirations in oil and gas industry and jointly also increases ability to deliver on the agenda of government. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources also remains committed to global and domestic energy transition agenda, from oil and gas to cleaner and sustainable energy, which will ultimately lead to cleaner, safer, and sustainable energy by the year 2060. Through various plans and actions, we remain committed to driving long-term sustainable policy direction and monitoring policy implementation across the entire sector. As we deliberate on the topic, revitalizing the industry, future fuels, and energy transition, it is my belief that the outcome of this summit will help the ministry in its bid to actualize the Decade of Gas initiative as an initial stage or strategy for cutting greenhouse gas by 20% by the year 2030. Our sincere thanks goes to Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, President Muhammadu Buhari, for his guidance and continued support, and of course our amiable Honorable Minister of State, Chief Timipre Silva, for providing unparalleled leadership. All our parastatals and agencies of government, other ministries represented here, partners, sponsors, delegates, various committees, media, and other stakeholders, and of course, our own indefatigable chief organizer, Brevity Anderson. We appreciate you and thank you for your efforts. It is with great pleasure that I welcome each and every one of you to this 5th edition of the Nigeria International Energy Summit 2022 and wish you a fruitful stay and deliberations. You are most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nasir Sanigwazo is the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Thank you. Onwards, we move on to our next speaker in the welcome remarks. It is also important that I salute all of the amazing, brilliant female professionals in the oil and gas industry who are represented here today. I want to appreciate all of you, the different women groups in the industry, and in particular, the partners for this event, the CBWN. We appreciate and recognize your presence. Mrs. Ngozi, thank you for being here. Onwards now, we continue with the welcoming remarks as we take our next speaker, the Pioneer Commission Chief Executive, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. Let's welcome Engineer Gbenga Komolafe, FNSE.
Your Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, here represented by the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum. Please permit me to stand on the existing protocols and just do the easy task I've been assigned, that is to give the welcome remark. Permit me to express that I'm very delighted and honored to present a welcome remark at this opening session of the 5th International Energy Summit. The theme of this year's summit, Revitalizing the Industry, Future Fuels and Energy Transition, is well focused as it offers unique opportunity for networking and a one-stop shop for all stakeholders to come together to discuss and share knowledge on ways to reposition the Nigeria oil and gas industry for higher productivity and attraction of new investments. Distinguished stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, in the course of deliberations and knowledge sharing at this summit, the Nigeria Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, will seek the opportunity to share insights with potential investors on statutory mandates of the Commission and the shifts in its regulatory direction since the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the PI 2021 comprehensively empowers the NUPRC to carry out both technical and commercial regulation of the upstream oil and gas sector, and as well offers attractive fiscal, regulatory, and governance regimes for attraction of investments into the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, fossil fuels are expected to continue to meet much of the world's energy demand, despite the growth in renewable energy and nuclear power. In order to meet increasing demand for petroleum energy, countries will need to carry out increased exploration, adopt advanced technology to maximize production yields and increase oil and gas reserves. Distinguished stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, the energy transition regime has posed a challenge and opportunity for Nigeria to reposition its energy focus and regulatory policies towards development of clean and renewable energy. Already, investors in the upstream have been tasked to provide their green story as a basis for attracting required funds for development. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, our invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is noteworthy that Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa, 25th largest in the world by nominal GDP. Emerging global power, World Bank rated emerging market and a maritime nation with 206 TCF gas reserve and crude oil and condensate reserve of 37 billion barrels. Nigeria has huge potential to monetize and drive optimal value from its oil and gas assets in response to the challenges posed by the energy transition regime. Also, let me remark that the supply disruptions caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine resulted in upward swing of crude oil prices surpassing $100 per barrel for the first time since 2014. This development offers market potential for Nigeria to key into optimizing its oil and gas assets. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, In view of the fact that Nigeria as a nation cannot exist in isolation of global trend in energy transition, the NUPRC, as part of implementation of its statutory regulatory mandate, we continue to ensure that operators present their green story in field development in a manner that incorporates carbon capture and commercialization. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to seize this opportunity to welcome each and every one of you, our invited guests, honorable ministers they are present, and to wish you all that at the end of the program, we would have achieved the intention for the summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Engineer Gbenga Komolafe, FNSE, is the Pioneer Commission Chief Executive of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. And next is the other regulator that came out of the PIA. I'd like to welcome the Pioneer Authority Chief Executive of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Let's welcome Engineer Farouk Ahmed.
Your Excellency, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, MNI, here represented, Your Excellency, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, please permit me to stand on the existing protocol as earlier established. I wish to seize this opportunity to congratulate and thank the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources, Mr. President, and the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timothy Silva, for the focused and sustained leadership over the energy sector of the Nigerian economy. The outcome of your leadership role in the sector, particularly the PIA, the Decade of Gas, implementation of the key infrastructure projects like the AKK, strategic focus on enhancing domestic refining capacity, expansion of gas utilization, to mention just a few, has set clear legacies that will guarantee the sustainable development of this critical sector in ensuring energy security for Nigeria and social economic revitalization using our enormous hydrocarbon resources. This year's summit, being the fifth in its edition in the series, has clearly evolved into becoming a strategic enabler for critical energy policy definition, as well as revitable investment opportunity for this industry. I therefore call upon all participants to use this year's summit to deepen the gains that have been achieved in the transformation of the energy sector in Nigeria. The legislative and regulatory certainty that the PIA has provides must serve as a mandate to grow the industry, especially the development and modernization and monetization of our abundant gas resources. The energy transition must serve as an enabler to create access to funding for our fossil resources, as well as drive investment in critical energy infrastructure that will not only secure the energy security and industrialization via gas-based industries and the attendant job creation and economic development, but also accelerate development of the renewable energy subsector of the industry as a source of future revenues for the country. The theme, revitalizing the industry, future fuels transition, is highly commendable and relevant and appropriate in both domestic and global context of ensuring clean and sustainable energy availability, and could have not come at a better time in the global race towards the clear aspiration of net zero emissions targets. However, Your Excellencies, let me emphasize that our energy transition target must be realistic and customized to our needs. This is the only way to make our energy transition journey truly sustainable. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, the NNPC, looks forward to receiving strategic insights from this energy summit on ingenious approaches that must be emplaced towards promoting energy security, economic stability and growth, and sustainable development of the Nigerian energy sector, using the extensive resources of this nation, especially gas, and interfacing with key stakeholders on all areas of regulatory enablement of the midstream and downstream energy value chain. The NNPC looks forward to collaborating with all stakeholders to ensure we have safe and sustainable midstream and downstream operations, as well as actively seeking and enabling much-needed investment in the subsector. Once again, Your Excellencies, welcome to the 2022 Nigeria International Energy Summit. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Engineer Farouk Ahmed is the Authority Chief Executive, Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to win a relay race, an athlete must run the best he or she can and ensure that when he passes the baton, his teammate finishes first. Our next speaker, since receiving the baton of leadership from his predecessor, has been running the relay race of local content in our country, increasing in-country retention, empowering Nigerians, and stimulating manufacturing with the parks coming on stream in the nearest of future. I'd like to now welcome our next speaker, the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, the game changer, Engineer Simbi Kesie Wabote.
Thank you, Richmond. You've already made my remarks for me. So, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, the GMD of NNPC, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to stand on already established protocol. My role this morning is very simple because there will be a lot of opportunity to have discussions around the energy transition that we find ourselves today in. And there will be a lot of discussions this time, not on the bill, but on the PIA, expanding on the opportunities, expanding on the challenges, and taking advantage of the opportunities that the Act brings for itself. For us in NCDMB, we see a huge opportunity in terms of where we want to be in the next couple of years. In NCDMB, we believe that behind every dark cloud, there is a silver lining. That is our mantra. And behind the challenges that the COVID-19 brought to us as a country, we have seen the need for local content. We have also seen the need to grow indigenous participation. we have also seen the need to build capacity amongst our people. Today, despite the challenges of COVID-19, NCDMB added 17 new operators into our system. And with the ongoing divestment, we see a huge opportunity where Nigerians would take charge of their natural resources and, of course, produce for their people. Therefore, for me, this summit gives us a great opportunity to expand on those discussions and again to set the target for ourselves where we want to be with regards to local content development. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe I have the podium on several occasions to speak on this. Therefore, let me use this opportunity to welcome all delegates, especially visiting ministers from other African countries, and all other delegates and captains of industry. One thing I must tell you, for where we have taken local content to in our industry today, it is time for us to synergize as Africa in order to expand that opportunity beyond the shores of Nigeria. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and I wish you all the best at this summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Simbi Kesewabote, the Executive Secretary and Chief Executive, Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. If you're a French speaker, the receivers on your chairs tune to channel 2 for French, and should a French speaker come up, tune to channel 1 for English. Thank you. Like a prolific technical advisor of a good football team, our next speaker has taken the company he operates as the chief executive from loss to profit, from opaqueness to transparency, and from an entity that is now to an entity that is now empowering Nigerians across the value chain. I'd like to welcome the Chief Executive Officer and Group Managing Director of NNPC Limited, our national host, Mr. Mele Kolo Kiari, FNAPI.
Thank you very much, Desmond. Mr. President, ably represented by Honorable Minister, please permit me to avoid all protocols. And to thank the organizers of this event. Obviously, it couldn't have come at a better time than today, or this moment. It's very obvious that the world is gravitating towards a net zero carbon situation. Our country is committed to net zero by year 2060, which also means that a number of steps must be taken. Companies must act differently, businesses must do things different, regulators must do different kind of regulation, policymakers must make different kind of policies so that we can achieve that objective by 2060. Achieving that objective also means more bigger thing than just mentioning it. Today in this country, and most of Sub-Saharan Africa, we all know that we are energy deficient, there's poverty of energy, and there's a huge gap that is there to be filled. We also understand the necessities of converting the internal combustion engine, as a form of transportation to something different, something much more climate friendly and efficient. But the reality today is that, in Sub-Saharan Africa, we're very, very far away from getting to that limit. And therefore, it is important that businesses act differently. We will lead this in our country and also in Sub-Saharan Africa for very obvious reason, because this country has the larger reserves of gas. We have the larger reserve of crude oil, including condensates. And therefore, there's simply no way you can transit to a net carbon zero situation without necessarily having a transition fuel. It is very clear to the world that gas will be the transition fuel. And that can't happen except you're able to put it on the ground, convert it to usable form, and also make it available to its users. you also can't do except you find financing for it. And today, we all understand the level of underfunding in the fossil fuel industry. Year to year, 10 years ago and today compared, we're at 50% of that level. And the impacts are already showing. There's a clear demand and supply gap that we are seeing today. And that's why we are seeing the $104 oil in the market today. No one has invested significantly in the last 10 years, and more so in the last 5 years. And much more difficult in our country today because we are not able to invest in the fossil fuel industry in the last 5 years to an extent that we are seeing the effects of what that really means. And therefore, it is my singular honor to the Honourable Minister, with your permission, to say that transition must have sanity. And there must be justice in transmission, energy transition. And that justice means that help us to get to a point where we're able to transport our ordinary people from their homes to their workplaces in the short term, and ultimately also assist us in making sure that we have the most friendly fuel that is put in place in the next 5 to 10 years. And ultimately, as we also build our ability to put the renewables on the table, and even that we can't do without financing, and we also know that there's shortage of finance in this respect. And therefore, for us in NNPC, we're here to serve you. We're here to facilitate this process. We'll work with our partners. And of course, we are seeing some of the consequences my brother Simbi has said. Companies are divesting. They are leaving our country, literally. That's the best way to put it. But they're not leaving because opportunities are not here, because companies are shifting their portfolios where they can add value, and not just that, where they can also add to the journey towards net carbon 0%. We understand this very, very perfectly, but also can't afford not to realize that this country must benefit from the realities of today. We will work with our partners. We understand the necessity for divestments. We do know that there are issues. We understand that this must take place, but also that it must be done in such a way that we are able to deal with issues around abandonment, decommissioning, and also making sure that whatever arrangement that's put in place ensures that we are also aligned along the energy transition journey that we're going through. Finally, Honourable Minister, the effect of energy supply can be seen if you come out to our streets today. A minor disruption in supply can cause the chaos that you are seeing in our streets. And that means that those redundancies must be settled. As a country, we must address the issue of local production of finished petroleum products, even in the short term. And this is what we are doing. We haven't achieved that. But you can see that the internal combustion engine challenge is a major social issue. And of course, we can't afford not to fill that gap today, much less of living with the fact that energy transition is a problem for all of us. In Africa, as we all know, only 3% of the total emissions come from Africa. We're not doing a catch-up. But the reality today is that even if you switch up the 3% of the emission that comes from Africa, you've done nothing. And therefore, for us, we're in a very vintage position where our additions will now be environment friendly in a manner that will achieve the 2060 deadline that we have taken for ourselves, but in a way that we also avoid social chaos in our country. And this is where we are. And Honourable Minister, with your permission, also avoiding all protocols, I would like to thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mele Kolo Kiari, FNAPE, GMD and Chief Executive of NNPC Limited. Thank you, our national host sponsor. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in the discourse of energy transition, it is important for Africa to have a voice, a front, to stand in unity and take a decision. Our next speaker is leading or responsible for managing the secretariat of a group in the industry for Africa taking such a stand. Please welcome Secretary General, Africa Petroleum Producers Organization, Dr. Omar Farouk Ibrahim.
Your Excellency Muhammad Buhari, President and Commander-in-Chief, represented by His Excellency Jimmy Silva, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. Leadership of the National Assembly here present, honorable ministers, ministers and heads of APO member countries, and heads of delegations, captains of industry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. In my goodwill message to the last edition of the summit in 2021, I had traced the history of NIPS to the foresight of Dr. Emmanuel Ibukachukwu, then Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, who on his return from the Offshore Technology Conference in 2016, resolved that Africa must have its own version of the OTC. I had also commended his successor, His Excellency Jimmy Silva, for his decision to continue with some of the initiatives started by his predecessor, noting that one of the biggest challenges militating against Africa's development is policy discontinuity. I noted the thoroughness with which Minister Silva reviewed all programs he met on the ground, making changes where necessary and improving on them as he implemented them. Today, as we celebrate the 5th edition of NIPS, permit me to once again congratulate these two gentlemen for their contribution not only to the institutionalization of this laudable project, but also for setting an example for other leaders to follow, namely, to undertake an objective review of what one finds on the ground, further develop the good ones, and discard what may not be worth the time and resources. I should also congratulate the organizers of NIPS, Brevity Anderson, for the successes they have been recording under what is inarguably a very difficult operating environment. Excellencies, you would have noticed that I keep referring to today's event as NIPS, not NIS, as the new official name is. The first reason is that I'm used to NIPS, and it sounds great to me. But a more important reason is that as a representative of the African Petroleum Producers Organization, APO, our continent's intergovernmental body for oil and gas, I find in the abandonment of the name petroleum for energy as capitulating to the intimidation of the anti-fossil fuel lobby. Who are determined to give a dog a bad name in order to hang it. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as African countries, especially those whose economies are highly dependent on oil and gas revenues, grapple with the energy transition, analysts are beginning to see 3 approaches to how African oil and gas producing countries can address the global energy transition. The first approach is to fall for the position the anti-fossil fuel group hook, line, and sinker. Countries that adopt this approach look to the anti-fossil fuel groups of the developed countries for support to make a quick transition from fossil fuels to renewables. Carrots in the form of climate finance, transfer of technology, foreign direct investment, etc., are dangled before them. With these promises, these countries begin to churn out policies to relegate fossil fuels to the background, even when these countries have tens of billions of proven crude oil and hundreds of trillions of frozen gas reserves in their countries. They begin to want to distance themselves from fossil fuels, or at least oil, in the first instance. But once a country starts distancing its economy from one of its mainstays, namely oil, it is just a matter of time before that country will be forced to also distance itself from gas. I hope very soon Mr. Kyari will not be forced to change the name of NNPC to NNEC. This approach believes that Africa's salvation lies with the developed world. It believes that Africa cannot make it without external support and guidance. The second approach are the rejectionists. This group of countries comprise those that believe that energy transition is a conspiracy devised by the developed world to stop the underdeveloped but resource-endowed countries from making the major leap into industrial development. To these countries, energy is critical to socioeconomic development, and that even if the science of climate change is established beyond any reasonable doubt, they are not ready to abandon fossil fuels until they have reached a level of socioeconomic development that will guarantee the basics of life for their population. These countries believe that Africa, that has contributed between 2 and 4% of global energy emissions, there is no justification to call on Africa to abandon its most affordable and reliable energy source for some energy that has not been tried and tested. This is more so as this school of thought believes that Africa is on the verge of an industrial breakthrough. To this group, even though Africa has not been able to master the technology of the oil and gas industry despite decades of operations, Africa can continue to produce fossil fuels without external support. To this group, energy transition is a blessing in the sense that it shall compel Africa to develop the required technology to sustain production in the industry, develop a continent-wide energy market, and also develop continental, regional, and sub-regional energy infrastructure. And the third approach, or the pragmatists, are countries that fall between the first and the second. These are a group of countries that agree that greenhouse gas emissions are harmful to the atmosphere and that every effort should be made to reduce or end it. It also believes that the developed world championing it, it is futile for any developing or poor dependent country to go against it. But they also recognize that they cannot hurriedly abandon fossil fuels. They still believe they need foreign markets for their fossil fuels, even when they know that if they aggressively pursue a policy of creating a continent-wide market from the 1.3 billion people in Africa, nearly half of whom live without electricity or any form of modern energy, the total production of oil and gas in Africa will not be enough for the African continent. Of the three approaches, the pragmatists seem to me to be on the ascendancy in Africa today. And this has been attributed to the consumption pattern of our elites. The elite want to continue to get foreign markets for their oil and gas in their raw form in order to get the foreign exchange with which to continue importing luxury goods and services. But for how long can we continue this way? Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa oil and gas producing countries cannot make much progress until we are able to undertake a critical evaluation of the dire situation we are going to face with the successful pursuit of the Paris and Glasgow agreements on climate change. In this respect, I should like to announce that a major study commissioned by the APO Council of Ministers, some of whom are here today with us, both in person and virtual, titled The Future of the Oil and Gas Industry in Africa in the Light of Energy Transition, has been completed and was submitted to the APO Ministerial Council at its last meeting in December 2021. Given the critical importance of the recommendations of the study, the Ministerial Council approved that it be presented to the Summit of Heads of State of APO member countries scheduled sometime this year. Before I conclude, I would like to make one observation regarding the number and quality of summits, conferences, seminars, exhibitions on oil and gas held every year in our member countries, each claiming to be the most prestigious energy event in the country or the continent. Having so many such conferences in one country when we are trying to encourage our people to join the industry in the past was good, but times have changed. The event organizers can confirm that the competition for sponsorship, delegates attendance, etc., is unwittingly affecting the quality of these events. It is time the industry thought of collaboration and cooperation to produce what can be truly national oil and gas events, while at the continental level, Apple provides the umbrella for some of the best continental energy event managers to organize a continental summit for oil and gas. We plan to do this on a rotational basis amongst our member countries. I would like to use this opportunity to once again appreciate the leadership role of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who started the Africa Local Content Roundtable, which it graciously conceded to Apple to organize as a continental event and to be held on a rotational basis. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Dr. Omar Farouk Ibrahim is the Secretary General of Africa Petroleum Producers Organization. Onwards now to the Secretary General of International Energy Forum. Welcome, Dr. Joseph McMonigal. Let's put our hands together and welcome him. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, Your Excellency, President Buhari, Your Excellency, and my good friend, Tiampre Silva, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Your Excellencies, friends, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the press. It gives me great pleasure to start my first trip as Secretary General to Nigeria and to offer a message of goodwill to all of you at the start of this important conference, where we will be discussing one of the biggest challenges facing us today. I refer here not to the climate crisis, but to the energy crisis. With rising prices of oil and gas around the world and mounting fears of scarcity, I'm keenly aware that for many Africans, energy scarcity has been a daily reality for decades. Lack of access to affordable, clean energy has devastating impacts on human health, the economy, and education. It is a shocking fact that 3/4 of the estimated 800 million people worldwide who lack access to electricity live on the African continent. And by 2050, 1 in 4 people in the world will be African. So this is an issue that, like Africa itself, will only grow in importance. While we make progress to stop greenhouse gas emissions and reverse global warming, we must also urgently address widespread energy poverty. Affordability and universal access to energy are prerequisites to the transition to net zero. I feel this simple fact is often overlooked in the debate on the energy transition, and I hope it will get renewed attention at the next climate change conference in Egypt on the African continent later this year. I was delighted to join you last March at the launch of Nigeria's Decade of Gas conference, and I am encouraged to see the progress you are making to develop your natural gas resources. It is absolutely essential that Africa get better access to capital to build the energy infrastructure it needs. Turning to oil markets, current price spikes and volatility are very concerning to both producers and consumers. Even before the current geopolitical risk in Europe, oil markets were already tight. The latest Jody oil market data analysis reveals that demand has returned to about 98% of pre-pandemic levels, while supply sits at about 95%. Nearly half of that supply gap is from the slower return of production in the United States. So I know, Minister Silva, you get questioned all the time about the challenges of Nigeria's production, but rest assured you're in good company with the United States on that point. The IEF is keen to work more closely with Africa, and we are already preparing for the 17th IEF ministerial meeting in Riyadh later this year that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will host, which will be co-hosted by Nigeria. And I hope that we can bring an IEF ministerial meeting to Africa and Nigeria soon. Only with access to reliable and affordable energy will Africa unleash its vast potential and move towards broad-based prosperity. So I wish you all the very best in your deliberations this week. Please count on the International Energy Forum, the IEF, as a strong ally of Nigeria and all of Africa as we seek to enhance understanding of global energy priorities and the need to place African interests at the heart of the international energy debate. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph McMonigal, the Secretary General of IEF. As the IOCs continue to diverse and the independents take them up, the IPPG is indeed a group that will ensure that independents become global players through collaboration and partnerships. Let's welcome the chairman of IPPG for his goodwill address, Mr. Abdul Razak Issa.
Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Minister of Petroleum Resources, President Muhammad Buhari, here represented by His Excellency Chief Timothy Silva, the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. I'm going to stand on all existing protocols. Your Excellencies, Captains of Industry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure on behalf of the Independent Petroleum Producers Group, IPPG, to convey this goodwill message on this auspicious occasion, the 2022 Nigeria International Energy Summit. I must begin by congratulating His Excellency, President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, on the unprecedented milestone delivered by his administration to exponentially move the oil and gas sector forward. Notably, following assent, the Petroleum Industry Act became effective 18th of August 2021 after almost 2 decades of industry-wide uncertainties and diminished investor confidence. This landmark legislation has begun the transformation of Nigeria oil and gas industry and will no doubt serve as a catalyst for the growth of the Nigerian economy. I will also use this opportunity to commend the Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Chief Timothy Silva, for organizing this summit and successfully hosting previous summits. These summits have always provided a platform to share ideas, showcase unique capabilities and investment opportunities in the industry, and co-create solutions to some of the key challenges facing our industry. The theme of this year's summit, Revitalizing the Industry, Future Fuels and Energy Transition, is topical and resonates with the current operating landscape. It underscores the importance of repositioning our industry in the face of ongoing global energy transition. The journey towards decarbonization of the energy mix is well underway. Nigeria cannot afford to be left behind or reactive to the transition and substitution. We would like to congratulate Mr. President for declaring year 2060 as Nigeria's net zero target during the last COP26 in Glasgow. This was backed by Nigeria's nationally determined contribution, which was updated in July 2021, being a requirement under the Article 4.2 of the Paris Agreement. Targeted policies and legislation must be formulated and implemented to enable the country to utilize its gas reserves as a lower carbon bridge to energy transition. It is therefore reassuring that proactive and concerted efforts are being undertaken by government through policy initiatives such as declaring 2021 to 2030 as the decade of gas, to fully utilize and commercialize the nation's abundant gas resources. Your Excellencies, captains of industry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, notwithstanding the notable achievements recorded to date across oil and gas sector in Nigeria, there is an existential threat facing us today. Insecurity has assumed different dimensions as the level of theft of crude oil is both unprecedented and unsustainable. In 2021 alone, producers in some parts of the Niger Delta suffered losses of between 15% to as high as 90%. Such monumental losses attributable to theft are a major threat to our business, revenues to government, as well as to national security. We commend the government on the current efforts being undertaken to address these challenges. Being the most impacted group, we are willing to partner with government in delivering speedy and lasting solutions to these security challenges so that Nigeria can capture the gains of the global energy market. Let me conclude with some words of gratitude. First, to His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari for his continuous support for the survival and growth of our oil and gas business, upstream, midstream, and downstream. Secondly, we are most grateful to our Minister of State for Petroleum Resources for always making himself available anytime we need to reach him. IPPG reaffirms its continuous commitment and support to the policies and programs of government. The NNPC Limited, industrial regulators, and other relevant stakeholders for the benefit of the industry as well as Nigeria. Finally, Mr. President, as chairman of Walter Smith Petroman Oil Limited, I would like to thank you for commissioning our modular refinery in Imo State and to acknowledge the support of the Honorable Minister of State, Chief Timi Silva, and the GMD of NNPC, Malam Mele Kolokiari, in the implementation of your directives at the commissioning. We are grateful. I thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdulrazak Issa, as the chairman of IPPG and, of course, the chairman of Walter Smith Group. Thank you. Onwards now to another group in the industry, and this time they have helped in building capacity in the oil and gas industry that has brought a lot of this independence, the OPTS. Let's welcome the chairman of the Oil Producers Trade Section and also the managing director of Chevron, Mr. Rick Kennedy.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and please allow me to stand on previously established protocol. On behalf of the Oil Producers Trade Section of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I thank the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and the organizers of this summit for the opportunity to be part of this year's edition of the Nigerian International Energy Summit. I also wish to use this opportunity to congratulate the Minister of State for past successful summits, which have been a platform for highlighting Nigeria's strong capabilities in the oil and gas sector and investment opportunities that are available. The theme of this year's summit, Revitalizing the Industry, Future Fuels and Energy Transition, is timely for all stakeholders, having spent the last couple of years adjusting to the various challenges faced in the world, and particularly in the energy industry. Some crises we have experienced reflect short-term challenges such as contraction in oil demand and disruptions in the oil and gas value chains caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. As the world progressively acts to mitigate and limit the impact of the pandemic, signals of a global economic recovery and growth will present Nigeria with new opportunities to develop its natural resources. 2021 also saw momentum towards the energy transition and global reduction in the use of fossil fuels, with Nigeria enacting the Climate Act and committing to reach net zero in 2060. While this may impact demand for hydrocarbons in the long term, it brings into focus the importance of a smooth implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act. A stable, predictable, fiscally competitive, and cost-effective business environment is essential to ensure investments in the Nigerian oil and gas industry remain attractive. It is our hope that this summit will help to identify and procure solutions towards ensuring sustained development of Nigeria's resources, particularly gas, which is a key enabler in Nigeria's energy transition. Doing so will boost investor confidence and help attract investment to grow the industry for the benefit of all stakeholders. In all this, OPTS remains committed as a trusted partner of the government and all stakeholders to move the industry forward. I wish us all very fruitful discussions at this summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reed Kennedy is, of course, the chairman of OPTS and MD of Chevron Nigeria. Thank you. Before I take the last two addresses for this opening ceremony, let me just inform us what will be happening following the opening ceremony. Following the opening ceremony, we would have the international panel session, where we would have on the stage ministers from the different countries that are in the room and some of the heads of our agencies here. Thereafter would be a refreshment break, and bilateral meetings will start happening amongst these visiting delegations and ministers that are in the room. About the same time, while the bilateral meetings are happening here, we will also have the Innovation, Technology and Young Energy Professionals Forum, an initiative of Huawei, that will take place in the ICC about the same time, so it's going to run concurrently. Now, following that, we're going to have a second stream of the same Innovation, Technology and Energy Professionals Forum. Following that, later this evening, we'll have a networking reception with the Executive Secretary of the NCDMB, sponsored by Sigma. And then following that will be the NIES 2022 Gala, sponsored by the NCDMB. Both the networking reception and the gala dinner will all be taking place here at the State Hall, banquet hall of the State House. So we proceed now to an address, albeit remotely, from the Secretary General of OPEC. I did say earlier that he's unable to join us, no thanks to the current geopolitical tensions across Europe. But he has sent in a video to address us in his goodwill for this session. Technical? Shall we please listen to the Secretary General of OPEC?
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, my fellow compatriots, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor and privilege to take part in this 5th edition of the Nigerian International Energy Summit. My sincere apologies for not being able to join you in person today. I had been looking forward to traveling to Abuja, but due to the fast changing geopolitical situation in Europe with its many implications for energy markets, I must remain in Vienna at this time. I would like to first of all recognize His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari and express our sincere appreciation for his fervent, steadfast support of Nigeria's energy industry, which is so well represented at this summit. This highly successful track record of supporting Nigeria's industry took a massive leap forward last year when the then Petroleum Industry Bill was passed by both chambers of the 9th National Assembly of our great country. This long-awaited legislation for the oil and gas sector is bringing about the necessary reforms designed to strengthen institutions, solidify regulatory and fiscal frameworks, and attract much-needed investment in a sustainable manner. We commend the 9th National Assembly for enacting this long-awaited legislation. At OPEC, we very much consider President Muhammadu Buhari as one of our own. An OPEC veteran, he has been heavily involved in the organization's affairs for decades and is currently the only serving head of state in the world who made his career by being intensely involved in the OPEC family. He has maintained his avid interest in our organization, and we all draw inspiration from his commitment. Allow me to also recognize my friend, His Excellency Timothy Silva, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and head of Nigeria's delegation to OPEC. Excellency, your leadership and active participation continue to enrich our ongoing pursuits to forge a sustainable stability in the oil market. My best regards and salutations to President of the OPEC Conference 2022, my friend and brother, His Excellency Bruno Jean-Richard Etoile, Congo's Minister of Hydrocarbons, His Excellency Gabriel Obiang Lima, Equatorial Guinea's Minister of Industry, Mines and Energy. My best regards to all other ministers, top industry officials, and delegates to this important conference in attendance today. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the 5th edition of the Nigerian International Energy Summit comes at a pivotal moment in the history of our industry. I want to commend the organizing committee under the able leadership of Comrade Mele Kolokyari, the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, for assembling a very thought-provoking and timely program. The theme of this conference, Revitalizing the Industry, Future Fuels and the Energy Transition, encapsulates perfectly the highly challenging and multidimensional dynamics of today's global energy industry. We can surely expect some highly insightful and useful outcomes from the deliberations we are about to embark on during this summit. Furthermore, it is extremely important that a major event of this nature is taking place on the African continent. African countries have historically assumed strong, proactive leadership roles in OPEC. The strong bonds between OPEC and Africa reflect the critical role that our great continent, with its young, vibrant, and talented population, will play in the future of the energy industry. I will provide more details and share OPEC's views and perspectives with my esteemed colleagues as we address these key issues during the international panel session, which will take place after the conclusion of this opening ceremony. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Sanusi Bakindo, the Secretary General of OPEC. Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in the last 2 years plus and counting, our next speaker has made good to the charge that was given to him by his boss regarding our industry. Some of the laudable achievements of his time in office will include the declaration of a decade of gas, the launch of the National Gas Expansion Program, the award of the AKK project, and the ramping up of local content retention in country. These and many more he continues to contribute to our nation. Join me now in welcoming His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, represented by the man whom I speak of, His Excellency Chief Timothy Silva, Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, for the President's and the Minister's address.
Thank you very much. Well, today I'm wearing 3 caps, as the PAMSEC said. First, the cap of Mr. President, and then the cap of the Minister of Petroleum, and then my original, the cap of the Minister of State, Petroleum Resources. I will not beg to avoid protocols. And I will also not beg to stand on the protocols established. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that's myself, in this occasion, honorable ministers present here, the Minister of Trade and Industry and the Minister of State, Trade and Industry, the Minister of the Interior, the Minister of State, Power, and other ministers that are here, my brothers, ministers from Equatorial Guinea, the Minister of Hydrocarbon, Petroleum, Equatorial Guinea, Gabriel Obiang Lima, and the Minister of Petroleum, Niger Republic, who is also here by himself, Minister Isufu, the Deputy Minister of Petroleum, Ghana, who is here, representative of the Minister of Energy, Saudi Arabia, and other representatives of other ministers of African countries that are here, federal permanent secretaries, secretary generals of OPEC, the secretary general of APO, the secretary general of the IEF and the GECF, chief executives of all government agencies here present, chief executives of our national oil company, the chief executives of international oil companies, chairman OPTS and IPPG, all delegates, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm fully aware that I'm doing all of us a favor today. We're all here not listening to stories about Ukraine and Russia for the first time in a long time, but discussing the thing that is most important to us, our industry. I will first speak as the Minister of State for Petroleum. I am highly delighted as Minister of State for Petroleum to welcome you all to the 5th edition Nigerian International Energy Summit. It is remarkable to note that this is the first of its kind since we rebranded in the year 2021 at the 4th edition from its initial name, the Nigerian International Petroleum Summit. This change is in tandem with the global energy transition and the need to ensure Nigeria remains relevant in the energy value chain. With all apologies to the Secretary General of APO. From the inception of this administration, the energy sector has rightly been elevated to the goose that lays the golden egg for the nation. Under the leadership of His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, the energy sector achieved the gold standard status with many giant leaps, and we are encouraged by the attention His Excellency, Mr. President, has given to the sector. We are also humbled with the urgency with which Mr. President treats matters relating to the energy sector. On behalf of the stakeholders of this industry, I hereby say thank you, Mr. President. To Capitol, Mr. President assented the much-awaited Petroleum Industry Act on the 16th of August 2021, bringing to pass the much-sought relief to the industry in Nigeria. I'm highly elated because the promise I made at the last edition to pursue vigorously the passage of the bill has now come to fruition. The contributions of the National Assembly to the successes recorded by this administration in the energy sector has not gone unnoticed. I want to commend the leadership of the National Assembly, especially the Senate President, distinguished Ahmad Lawan, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, for the new lease of life in the executive-legislative relationship. The National Assembly truly deserves thumbs up for working across party lines, putting aside personal interests and putting Nigeria first by passing the over-decade-old Petroleum Industry Bill into law. The Petroleum Industry Act has indeed given the industry more clarity and certainty. The industry is poised to attract huge investment needed to reposition the sector. It is noteworthy that government has matched words with actions with the swift implementation of certain provisions under the PIA. The following actions have already taken place. The Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR, Petroleum Product Pricing Agency, and the Petroleum Equalization Trust Fund have been scrapped. The National Petroleum Company, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, has been incorporated. The board of the company has equally been inaugurated. The boards of the Nigeria Upstream Regulatory Commission and the Midstream Downstream Regulatory Authority have also been inaugurated. Staff have also been transferred from the SY regulatory agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, with the PIA in place, expectations and optimisms are high. I have no doubt that the stakeholders in the energy sector gathered here are supercharged to meet the high expectations. While we bask in the euphoria of the PIA, let us not lose sight of the Decade of Gas initiative. Rightly, the federal government has declared natural gas as a transition fuel for the country. Thus, the Decade of Gas initiative provides us the linkage with the energy transition. While we will not wish away our vast hydrocarbon resources, let us remind ourselves that the energy transition is real. That is the direction the industry is moving globally, and Nigeria cannot afford to be left behind. The theme of this year's Nigeria International Energy Summit, Revitalizing the Industry, Future Fuels and Energy Transition, is therefore apt for the moment. Climate change has also brought the discourse
on energy transition to the front burner, which is to reduce carbon footprints to ensure global temperatures are within allowable limits of 1.5 degrees centigrade. As we all know, the African continent is bedeviled with energy poverty, which is a critical enabler to achieving the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The goals set out in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the 2015 Paris Agreement on Climate Change together provides an integrated pathway towards a more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable future. A future enabled by a just and inclusive transition to clean and modern energy. In adopting global future fuels, both energy poverty and climate change nexus have to be addressed simultaneously. It must be geared towards clean and sustainable sources. For countries such as Nigeria, that is rich in natural resources but still energy poor, the transition must not come at the expense of affordable and reliable energy for people, cities, and industry. On the contrary, it must be inclusive, equitable, and just, which means preserving the right to sustainable development and poverty eradication as enshrined in global treaties such as the Paris Accord. It is evident that what makes the most sense from the point of view of balancing energy security with environmental sustainability is the use of gas as a transition fuel. At the heart of this administration is a vision to drive infrastructure and industrial development of the country in order to prosper her citizens and make life more meaningful to all. Natural gas ticks all the boxes as a vehicle to help government achieve the aspiration. And that is why we embraced the resource to help turn around the economy by declaring the years 2021 to 2030 as Nigeria's decade of gas. To demonstrate that we are indeed committed to our vision, the decade of gas has now become an integral part of the federal government oil and gas roadmap. We have embarked on a critical pathway to ensuring that the over 200 trillion standard cubic feet of gas, or proven reserves of natural gas in Nigeria, is marshaled to engender domestic economic growth and development beyond 2030. Thus, we are driving to make natural gas our dominant primary energy source for use in the medium to long term. Thankfully, our reliable partner, the Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Limited, is not backing out. They are fully backing this initiative all the way. Thank you, NLNG. In this regard, the ministry has launched the National Gas Expansion Program to expand Nigeria's domestic gas utilization as part of the national gas policy. The National Gas Flare Commercialization Program, as well as specific provisions in the New Petroleum Industry Act that elevates LPG as a fuel of choice compared to other competing fuels. With this program, we have established a 20 million cylinder injection scheme. 5 to 10 million of these are to be introduced in pilot states this year. We have also established an LPG energy fund in the order of $50 million in its first phase, in partnership with Afro-Exim Bank. LPG is said to be part of the destination as it is being used as a precursor for green hydrocarbon with zero emission. An eventual move to bio-LPG will allow countries like Nigeria to keep existing infrastructure in place, capitalize on already existing supply and distribution chains, and reach net zero at far lower cost. This, without doubt, will help overcome the concern of stranded assets, and consumers will not have to reinvest in expensive electrical solutions if their gas appliances can be repurposed for zero-carbon LPG. As we have done in the past editions of this summit, I expect free and frank exchanges in all our discussions, and I'm also prepared to present this summit outcome at the Federal Executive Council meeting. Nigeria and the entire continent of Africa count on you at this moment to ensure that we move our oil and gas industry forward. Once again, I welcome you all to Nigeria International Energy Summit 2022. I wish you all fruitful deliberations and an enjoyable stay in the city of Abuja. That is from me as Minister of State, Petroleum. Now, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am not addressing you as Minister of State, as Petroleum. I am going to address you as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be here once again at Nigeria's #1 energy industry event, the Nigeria International Energy Summit. The federal government, through the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, together with all its agencies, have done well sustaining this summit since inception in 2018. More importantly, the summit has been of great value in terms of policy input for government and a business resource for the private sector. The year 2021 was a milestone for Nigeria's energy sector, as it witnessed a number of record-breaking activities. The marginal fields bid round, the Petroleum Industry Act, and the declaration of the years 2021 to 2030 as a year of gas, as a decade of gas. The marginal fields bid round and the Petroleum Industry Act surmounted over a decade jinx before seeing the light of day. For the Decade of Gas initiative, it holds a promise for a prosperous Nigeria for Nigerians. You might ask, why will the marginal field bid round be such a big deal when the world is moving away from fossil fuels? The answer is simple. Awarding the marginal field gives Nigeria and Nigerians the opportunity to speed up its fossil fuel exploitation and make quick use of this resource before it is abandoned as the fuel of choice. Crude oil prices are on the increase, on the rise again, after turning negative in April 2020. It is a great opportunity for us as a country. With Petroleum Industry Act in place, there should be no excuses. The enabling investment environment, which has been the bane of the industry, has been taken care of by provisions of the PIA. There is now a level of certainty for the regulatory administrative and fiscal framework, and the legitimate grievances of host communities most impacted by activities of the industry has been addressed by the Act. To demonstrate our seriousness, the administration did not waste time with the implementation of the PIA. We moved quickly and replaced existing agencies, the DPR, PEF, and PPPRW, were scrapped and replaced with the Commission and the authority. We have inaugurated their new chief executives and their boards, the chairman of the boards. We have also ensured the incorporation of the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited under the Companies and Allied Matters Act. The NNPC Limited is a limited liability company now, and our target is to make it the biggest and the most capitalized and the most profitable company in the whole of Africa. For the Decade of Gas Initiative, our major objective remains the transformation of Nigeria into a gas-based industrialized nation through enhanced accelerated gas revolution. We will ensure further optimal exploitation and utilization of the country's vast natural gas resources. Given the country's potential of about 600 TCF natural gas reserves, has enormous potential to diversify and grow Nigeria's economy. We are fully aware that energy transition raises the bar in terms of environmental, social, and governance demands. We do not have to panic. We are already building blocks and bricks that will ensure seamless energy transition as the country joins in the race for net zero carbon emission. That is why this administration declared natural gas as a transition fuel for Nigeria. Without doubt, natural gas ticks all the boxes. We are prepared to face the challenge of the rising global demand for cleaner energy sources. I urge this summit to develop smart homegrown goals for the country's energy transition. We are waiting to deliberate on the strategy paper from this summit and incorporate critical parts of it into government policies where necessary. Finally, I wish to commend the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and all agencies under the ministry for this summit, for delivering once again another world-class summit. It is therefore my privilege and honor to declare the 5th edition of Nigeria International Energy Summit open, and I wish you fruitful deliberations. Thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you, Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, President of the Republic of Nigeria. Thank you, Your Excellency, Chief Timothy Silva, Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources. Okay, one more thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, President Buhari, Minister of Petroleum. Thank you very much. Please, one more time for the Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. Okay, so gradually, we're coming to the end of the opening ceremony. Following this now, I'm going to call out a few people for a group photograph. After that, we will just take a stretch break for like 3-4 minutes. So stand, stretch our legs, sit down, and then I'll bring up the international panel to take the session. So please, this, for 2 reasons, constraint of space and the number of ministers participating, I'll be limiting this year's opening ceremony photo as follows. First, I'd like to invite to join me here now the representative of our diamond sponsors. Who are we? Mr. Liu Zheng. Mr. Zheng, please come forward. Liu, please come forward. This, photographers, this is the space I'm using, so I need you to, I'm using this, so please, from this top down, so you know how you arrange them as they're coming, okay? I'd like to also invite our national host, the NNPC Limited, GMD, sir. Please join me. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome our platinum sponsors. First off, the NUPRC. NUPRC. Next, the NCDMB. NCDMB. Shell. Mr. Osagi, if you can come forward, please. Mr. Kumbo. Can I get a representative for ExxonMobil? Just one. Exxon, please. Okay. Nigeria LNG. I know Mr. Oh, okay. You're welcome, sir. My GMD, I didn't know you were in the room. Good morning, sir. You're welcome, sir. Mr. James Shindi. Mr. James Shindi, please step forward. Dr. Omar Apple, please step forward. Dr. Mark Manigo, IPPG, OPTS, please step forward. Authority, NMDPRA, please step forward. Yeah, I'm coming. I'm going there. The Permanent Secretary, sir, please step forward. Her Excellency Ambassador Mary Beth Leonard, ma'am, please step forward. Can the Venezuelan ambassador please join us as well? Please step forward. I'd like to now ask to join me the honorable ministers that are in the room. Honorable Aniekan Omana, you are in the room as well. Where are you? Please step forward. Honorable Aniekan Omana. And all the honorable ministers from Equatorial Guinea, Saudi Arabia, Niger, Ghana, Nigeria. Ogbeni, Your Excellency, sir, please join me. Please join me. Otumba Adeni, please, sir. Ambassador Ma Miriam, please, ma'am, if you're still in the room, join us. All the ministers that are in the room can step forward, please. All the ministers. Okay, now, Your Excellency, sir. If you can please step forward, sir, now. Please step forward. All right. So, we'll take this picture. We'll take this picture and Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, once we're done with this picture, they will still be standing there when I call for the national anthem. After the national anthem, they'll return to their seats. As I said, we'll take a stretch break and return from that stretch break straight into the international panel. Now remember, while we're having the bilateral meetings, we'll be having concurrent sessions, the data to barrel, the Huawei 2 streams that will happen. There'll be a networking reception here later in the evening sponsored by Sigma. Refreshment that will follow the close of this session is sponsored by Chevron. We thank all of our sponsors. And of course, the networking reception with the ES of NCDMB and the dinner sponsored by NCDMB that will follow later. Photographers, are we good? We are done. Please, national anthem.